Hello guys and dolls, and welcome back to Honey Badger 3D Print and Paint. Today we are taking a look at the Centauri Carbon. Let's get it out of the box, a quick word from our sponsor, and roll those credits. Huge thanks to our sponsor today, Turnkey Web Agency.
Looking for a hassle-free way to bring your website to life? With Turnkey, you don't have to lift a finger. Turnkey are an all-inclusive website service, not a DIY builder with generic templates, for just £45 a month for a portfolio website. They design, build, host, and maintain your website, all for a simple fixed fee. No hidden costs, no complicated setup, just a fully managed service tailored to your business or personal project. From sleek portfolios to professional website services, they take care of everything so you can focus on what matters. Hosting, maintenance, custom domains, expert design support, it's all included. Plus, with direct customer support, help is always on hand. And as a special offer, get 10% off your first year. Contact them at hello@turnkeywebagency.com or by visiting their website through the link in the video description and asking for a free consultation. Tell them Honey Badger sent you. Get ready to turn your ideas into reality and get started with Turnkey today.
So, the Centauri Carbon from Elegoo. The tagline for this video should be a great printer with no real surprises. And a couple of caveats, but we'll get to those. So, this is the latest offering from Elegoo. It is the latest in a number of Core XYs we've seen hitting the market, certainly in this year and the tail end of 2024. It's aggressively priced at under $500 US. This is an incredibly enticing device. Let's have a quick look at some of the specs for this. We are looking at a 256 by 256 by 256 build volume. We're looking at circa 500 millimeters a second, but we'll get to that, with 20,000 millimeters a second in acceleration. It does have an active heat chamber, so you're doing PET in this, you're doing ASA, PC, PA, nylons, things like that. There are some interesting choices with this. So this machine, as it stands, does not currently have an AMS. Something that everybody is chasing, the perfect AMS design at the moment, and Elegoo have ultimately decided they aren't going to do one. Now, we were asked for this video specifically to compare this to our Bambu X1 Carbon. Now, if you're going to come for the king, you better not miss. So, have they missed? The answer is no, with kind of a little bit, yeah. So, okay, so without an AMS, this machine does not compare with a P1S or indeed with an X1 Carbon. The fact that this has an active heat chamber does not make it the rival of any other machine on the market right now. There are some interesting design choices. So design choice number one is the spool holder is on the left-hand side. Let's just talk about what that means. So the spool holder is on the side, and on the side you also have the filament sensor, not inside the machine. So what that means is that the filament always needs to be fed from the side of this machine. Now, the machine does have a poop chute, a purge chute at the back that means it can purge filament if it were changing between materials. But if the filament sensor and the spool holder are on the side, don't really see how you're then able to add an AMS later on. There are no data connections on the back of this machine, and probably most importantly for our Firmware colleagues, there is no Ethernet port. So if you want to use this machine remotely in a farm, you have to use Wi-Fi. That brings me on to the next point. They are using a highly customized version of their own software. It is based on Clipper, but it isn't Clipper. What that means is that the Wi-Fi protocol that is required is an Elegoo Wi-Fi protocol. It's not available in any other slicers right now. Now, Elegoo have assured me they are working with Orca Slicer to make the Elegoo Wi-Fi plugin available in Orca Slicer. But let's be very clear, Orca Slicer is not a commercial product. It is a community-driven, open-source product with its own development backlog. And unsurprisingly, their priorities are not to include third-party plugins just whenever that third party decides to rock up and say they should have one. With no Ethernet port, you are limited to Wi-Fi. There are a number of commercial environments where you cannot use Wi-Fi, and Ethernet is your only option for networking. Otherwise, you're using the USB port at the front. Let's get into print quality and how this machine actually prints, because I want to be clear, this does a really good job at what it says on the tin. This is out of the box printing. No fiddling, no setting up, just turn it on, let it do its auto calibration, and you will be printing in under 20 minutes. But let's take a look at what some of those prints look like. Okay, let us start with the Benchy. This Benchy has come out really nicely. Good first layers, nice and consistent sides, good consistent bow. Done a good job on overhangs. No real stringing to speak of. Very clear on the base text. I don't know if you can see there. Get this camera to focus. A nice clean bow. Very, very nice on that. We have articulated robot guy. So this is a print in place. It's done a pretty good tolerance test. You can move all of these. They're all articulated. They all move pretty freely. He's a pretty good example of what this can do on an articulated print. We have the useless fork. It is articulated. It is the favourite thing that I have ever done, and if you don't like this, you should never speak to me or my son ever again. You can see the articulation is done very nicely. It's a very free-flowing fork, which does make poking food very difficult, but hilarious. So there we go. It's also good for defending your mid-century mashed potato tower from oncoming hordes. If you use it like a forky mace. We do have a more serious test here. So this guy here, look at his little face. He is an excellent bridging test. So he prints flat like this with no supports. You can see that the web on the bottom is completely unsupported when it prints. Come on. There we go. And it prints very, very nicely. All of the legs came out. All of his bum came out. All of his fangs came out. A really, really good bridging test. So excellent job there. Vase mode is excellent for extrusions. So as an extrusion test, you can see no sidewall defects whatsoever. Very, very nice on the bottom as well. Beautiful, consistent first layer there. No separation in that layer between the base layer and the sides. Very, very good. Move on to 3D printer test. Front overhang, front very good. Overhang test, very good as well. Let's see if we can get the light on that. So you can see just how far it went on that on those overhangs. So it has done an excellent job up to 75 on the short throw, and it's done a very, very good job all the way up to 70 on the long throw. That is rare that you get above 60 on good results. They are very good results. And again, on the side here, you can see we've got a retraction test. Done a very good job there. Nice, clean surfaces. These are dimensionally accurate as well. So all a very good job. We've got this guy here. This guy is another tolerance test. So when you pick this up, you can see that everything down to 0.2, which also pops out. You can see there that all of these are this goes all the way down to a 0.2 in tolerance. We print up here. You can see we've got a relatively extreme retraction test up here. This is a little wispy, but these are completely stock settings. Bridging test on the side, excellent. Overhang test. So this is good up to about here, which is 20. Before we get to 50, so 80 equivalent on the other one, and the 15 step is a little ropey underneath. You can see this is another bridging test here, so you can see this prints with no support, so it would have printed the outside of this and then prints this. Very, very good results on that bridging test, and also fairly good on this bridging overhang. Little bit of defect there, but certainly an excellent entry. Finally, we have our good friend the torture toaster. So our toast pops up very nicely. Our sides work very nicely. We have the 5 moves freely. The 4 is fixed. The 4 is fixed. No, the 4 moves up freely. 3 moves up freely. 2 does not move. So you're all the way at a 0.3 on tolerances on this. And if we open this side, you can see we've got really good results on this as well. So a really, really nice torture test there. Then I thought we'd do some new Voron parts out of a blue Hatchbox ABS that I've got. These came out very, very nicely. So these print face down like this, and then they print with no supports. So top layers are very, very nice. Sidewalls, very, very nice. All of the finish and fit on this is excellent. This was the part I was most impressed with. So let's get this in focus properly. So this prints completely flat, no supports. If you look here, we get in here, you can see just how good that bridging came out. So this prints really nicely on ABS. You can see all the surface finish is excellent, and that bridging, absolutely phenomenal bridging. Very, very good job. So I am impressed with that. So as you can see, the print results are great. I have a useless fork. Easily my most favourite print I've ever done. Just a completely useless fork. Articulated, prints as one, best print ever. Amazing bridging. It's amazing bridging in ABS. I mean, these are Voron parts. They're incredibly usable. No restricted paths on the on any of the fan ducts. Very nice top surface finish. Very consistent sidewalls. Very consistent first layers. Very, very nice. And for those who are curious about things that aren't test prints, we are doing the GAN body Millennium Falcon. And all of this was printed on the Centauri Carbon. Many of these prints were multiple prints on a singular build plate. Most of them print without any supports, and it's not done a bad job. Overall, some of the panel fitment isn't perfect, but to be fair, that's more to do with the size than it is to do with the printer. So this is more than capable, even though it's a 256 build volume, of doing large prints if those prints are cut correctly. Given that bamboo currently dominates a large part of the 3D printing market, unsurprisingly, a large number of prints are scaled to fit in a 256 build envelope. So I don't think you're going to be absolutely clamoring for more print volume, more build volume. I'm super limited. Do you think you're going to be asking a lot of questions about why we don't have an AMS? So let me be clear, an AMS is not just about being able to print multiple colours. To an extent, it's about being able to do multiple materials. So it is being able to use PVA for dissolvable supports, for example, or being able to use HIPs as an interface layer to mean you reduce support scarring. Also, it is about being able to stack 4 or 5 kilos of filament next to each other and simply running through it, which again, when you're in a farm situation, means you have less time going and switching filament, or you have less time where the print is paused because it can automatically switch to the next spool. Can't do that with this. Any AMS that comes with this machine, because of where they have put the filament sensor and where they have put the filament path, will pretty much have to sit off to the side of the machine. And when it comes to workshop space, that's a big deal. That's a heck of a lot of workspace real estate. When you stack it on top, it means you can put these machines next to each other. You can stack them up. You can do with the X1 Carbon. Can't do with this. The touch screen, let's take a little look at how that shapes up. So let's take a look at the touch screen. We've got lights, Wi-Fi down here. This is your bed readouts and everything else. This is your local USB drive or your print history. This is a bunch of stuff that I've already printed. Very, very similar. You will have seen all of this. This is where you can extrude, change your fans, do your extruder temperatures, all of that cool stuff. And then we've got our normal, we've got all our over-the-air update stuff. You can see that I am on the latest firmware. And then this is the calibration menu that shows you input shaping, automatic leveling, PID tuning, all of that good stuff there. It's a very responsive touchscreen. So look, it's nice to see a UI that is theirs and not just a carbon copy of anybody else's. It's responsive, it does what it needs to. It's really not going to set the world on fire, but maybe that's the point. Play it safe, make it usable. It is all of those things. Now let's take a look at the extruder. Right, let's take a look at extruder. So, magnetic cover comes off. Once again, we have made a conscious choice to make it so that I have to unplug a very small plug to be able to get this off. No idea why that's a thing. Why they couldn't just make that contact pins that sits on the top, mind-boggling to me. We have the extruder right here. If I take this sock off, you can see what that looks like. Connections for this extruder are behind the extruder head itself. So once you remove these two, this extruder comes out and then you can unplug the side fan, which is right here. You can unplug the thermistor and the heating elements from just either side. It's relatively tidy. I don't think I've got any major complaints about it. This sock just pushes back on like that there, nice. And then this just has to plug into here. And then we are, there we go, back on there. Filament side cutter is right here. You can see that we've got dual belts. This is the poop chute, and we have a silicone brush just here. Nice beefy stepper motors for A and for B. And there is a two-sided build plate. So you have side A, this is the textured PEI, and then you have side B, which is PLA specific plate, and it's just a little smoother. You can select which one you want on the slicer. I've really only been using the textured side, which you can see from the prints that we did. Relatively clean in here. Again, 3-axis on the Z. It does all its own auto calibration. It does do its own. Bed leveling, auto shape, input shaper, and all that jazz. That's all on there, automated and all good. Again, the only reason you can see this is because I have taken the dark cover off of the top. If you put the cover back on, it starts to get much darker in there. And then if I turn that light off, really almost no change whatsoever. So you can see there that this is what the inside looks like. So again, no real surprises at the extruder level. This is very much a play it safe, don't rock the boat kind of pitch. It says that it will do 500 millimeters a second. Just to be clear, because we don't have full clipper on this, there's actually no way to see what the actual millimeters per second is. And indeed, on these prints, it did them very quickly. It did them very well. As you have seen, the results are high quality prints. But what we were asked to do was compare this to how my X1 Carbon prints. And that is an aggressive way to come into the Core XY market. There are plenty of people that are trying to dethrone the bamboo. Okay, we've had Prusa bring out the Core 1, we've had Chidi bring out the Plus 4, and they're all trying to beat the X1 in certain areas, either in speed, in features, or something else. This machine is trying to beat bamboo at its own game. And bamboo's very good at that game. It's not throwing a lot of curveballs. It's not doing anything that the bamboo isn't. It is a minor improvement in speed. It is an active heat chamber. Okay. But to be clear, if I want to print nylon, I need my filament enclosed because I need to keep it dry. I can't do that on this machine. I have to buy a filament dryer and sit it next to this machine. More desktop real estate. It's doing such a good job. I really cannot stress, when it comes to doing bridging tests, this thing is absolutely smashing it. Okay? This is a good printer. But we weren't asked whether or not this was a good printer. We were asked by Elegoo, we want you to compare this to your X1 Carbon. And they have made the same mistake that bamboo has, which is that this machine is fundamentally awful to work on for maintenance. The extruder is pretty good. So the extruder, as you saw in the video, all the plugs are at the front. You'll be able to change the extruder and that heatsink relatively easily. That's pretty good. But replacing belts, that's still an absolutely savage job. Running Core XY belts is always complicated. It's not a simple task to do it really in any machine. In my Voron, in my rat rig that I had, in this, in the Quiddy, it's not great. But again, If you are saying, I want to build a better machine than the Bambu X1, then you have to take a look at the community's feedback on its flaws and try to build on those. Which means you need to do better at lighting the interior, not worse. You need to have a way to actively dry filament, not passively dry it. You need a more competent, more capable, more versatile AMS system that doesn't clog, doesn't jam, and doesn't wear out the PFTE tubes that quickly. You need to be able to perform simple maintenance on the machine, which means panels should be magnetic, not tooled. It means that we should be able to change the belts relatively easily. We should be able to take all panels off and have full access to all sides to be able to run those belts as we need to. We should be able to tension those belts really easily, and there should be an automated process to allow us to do that. So close. It was so close. And there's one thing, personal crusade, put the power button on the front. Stop using generic parts as an scapegoat to going, oh, well, you never need to turn the machine off. Not true. I will quickly move on to the slicer. Elegoo Slicer is a branch of Orca Slicer. They say that very openly. Let me be clear, what it is Orca Slicer, but blue, and worse. Worse for one reason only. The Orca Slicer devs do nightly dev builds. Their beta versions are tested and community feedback is accepted, worked on, iterated, delivered and improved. They do a great job at continuously updating, iterating and improving that slicer. And when you create a branch of software like that, what you create is a stale slicer that you then have to bear the development burden of keeping up to date. At best, every time Orca Slicer releases a beta or releases a new update, Elegoo has to receive it, unpack it, iterate, release, test, and then publish their new version. And there is a development cycle to making that happen. Elegoo is not a software company. There was no reason whatsoever to make their own version of Clipper because Clipper exists, and there was no reason to make their own version of Orca Slicer because Orca Slicer exists. If they hadn't have made their own version of Clipper, they wouldn't have needed the Elegoo Exchange protocol, which means they wouldn't have needed their own slicer, and they could have just used Orca Slicer with a very highly tuned profile that everybody would have loved. If this is your only machine, I get that you don't really care that the slicer is Elegoo's rather than Orca's. I get that. That's not my position, and I have to review this in the world that I currently exist in, which is that we have multiple machines here, and when I get proprietary slicers, it means another bit of software that I have to install on my machine, that I have to keep up to date to make sure that I can continue to use my printer. Why create the burden for yourself? There was no need. Now, I can only review the machine that I have here, okay? I cannot review the version of the machine that goes to retail because it may be different to this, okay? On February 7th, Elegoo launched their campaign on their website, and I believe it's February 17th as to when pre-sales actually begin. They've already said that they're looking at addressing the issues with the light inside the machine, and hardware-wise, that's pretty much the only complaint that I have before we get to a place where you guys get machines, right? My other concerns are software-based. So I don't really like Elegoo Slicer. I had some issues where my Wi-Fi connection would randomly drop out and I wouldn't be able to upload from the slicer. They've given us a new version. That issue is now resolved. There's a weird one on the machine where when the print is finished, it says cancel or print again. If you don't clear that message, you actually can't send another, you can't start another print on the printer. You have to clear that message on the touch screen to then have it print something. You can send another print, but it won't start until you clear that message. I don't know why that message hasn't got like a 30-second timeout or something like that, or when a new print job comes along, it doesn't just clear that message automatically and start the next print. I don't like their version of Clipper. It is it's their mainboard OS. That's fine. It's very obviously based on Clipper, and I don't like it. There's less information, there's much less control, there's no ability to issue commands, it's buggy. So I did some time lapses, which as you'll see from this video, were functionally useless because they are appalling time lapses because of the absolutely atrocious lighting inside of this. It's kind of fine for remote monitoring, like you can kind of see your print if you're in a lit room, but if this machine is in a dark room, you can't see anything inside the machine. It's just a dark box. The light that's in there doesn't do anything. None of my time lapses displayed in my UI. Let's take a quick look around that UI so you can see what I'm talking about.
Okay, so this is the Clipper interface for the Elegoo Centauri. It's very, very simplistic. So you can see here we have the camera down here. We have your print settings down here. Your printer readouts down here. This is a video list. I have time lapses on the machine of prints I've already done. They are accessible on the screen. They are not currently accessible on here, so I don't know why that's like that. Also, little side note is regardless of whether or not you set this to English or Chinese, the images that are used for when a directory is empty still have Chinese writing in them. I want to be clear, it feels like a minor complaint, but it just feels unpolished, I suppose is the way I describe it. There is no printer config in here. There is no ability to issue commands. You can't do anything to the printer other than start a print or watch the webcam. If I turn the light, so the lighting is currently on, believe it or not, and I'm in a lit room. If I turn the light off, you can see that it makes basically no difference whatsoever. So if we go back on, you can see that I have lit this edge of the bed quite nicely. I cannot see the print. There is a spotlight that is directly above this printer. I don't see how you're supposed to see anything on the time lapses without literally shining a light directly into the printer whilst it is printing. Yeah, this is an incredibly simplistic cut-down version of Clipper's interface. Just to be clear again, this is... You can't do any filament extrusion. You can't unload or load filament from here. You can only home each of the axes, home all, and then you can turn on the fans. That's all you can do from here. You can upload files and you can start prints. You can also download those files or remove them from here as well. But other than that, this is all you get.
So as you can see, it's really simplistic. I don't love it. It just feels, again, like a clunkier version of something that we already had that was better. And for no material gain, right? Again, another development burden that they've got to keep that up to date. Why? Clipper already exists. If what you issue is better, or it has new features, or it does something really cool and funky, fine, I get that. It doesn't. So there's that. When we come to the ultimate question of should you buy this machine, I have to give an annoying answer, which is, it depends. If for some reason you don't want to go with bambu, so bambu have not draped themselves in glory recently when it comes to the latest updates that they're doing with slicer compatibility and a few other bits and pieces as well. If you just want to stay away from that drama, if you find the bamboo community to be quite a toxic one, which unfortunately Prusa got to this point where the community became this really toxic environment of there's no way it could be the printer, it must be you. The issue is the person behind the keyboard, not the machine itself. I'm finding the bamboo groups and the bamboo communities are very much shifting in that direction as well. They can be quite hostile to new people, and they can be quite rude and dismissive. So if you just want to avoid all of that and you've used Elegoo products before and you like it, fine. Bambu's support isn't the best. It's by no means the worst. Elegoo's is very good the few times I've had to use it on other machines that we've had. To be clear, we have used their ticketing system before, but we haven't used it for the Centauri Carbon, so can only comment on what we've actually used. This machine is an 8.5 out of 10. And for me, my X1 Carbon is a 9.5 out of 10. The 9.5 for the X1 Carbon is because there are basic parts of maintenance on wearable parts that are a pig. Same with this. The reason for the 8.5 is not a print quality one. The print quality on this is absolutely up there with my X1 Carbon, my P1P, right? I want to be so clear. PLA, ABS, we did some ASA, great quality parts, great finish, good tolerances, amazing bridging, really, really good. What lets it down is that they need to fix that light. If you're going to have a feature like time-lapse and it's something you want to be able to use, the only way for you to use it on this machine is to have the door open and literally shine a light in there, or have the lid off and shine a light in the top. That's the only way you'll be able to see your print. The camera is like 720p. It's fine. I think it's like 5 frames per second. But for time lapses, it's absolutely fine. For remote monitoring, it's absolutely fine. But that light, unacceptable. Really does make it pretty unusable. We're in a studio where we have multiple lights, quite powerful ones, as well as overhead LED lights and everything else that mean that, you know, we got pretty much the best results you can, the best environment you can to try and get the best time lapses. And I mean, you've seen, like, they're garbage. Like, they're not usable. Do you know what I mean? If you wanted to create content to be able to post online, say, hey, look at this cool time lapse, they're not usable. Like, they're poor. So that's why it's an 8.5 out of 10. And 8.5 feels a little high, but to be clear, I don't really use time lapses. So that feature not being great, it really isn't a massive deal for me. I want to be very clear. The link that we put down in the video description is not an affiliate link. We do not have affiliate links with this, but full disclosure, Elegoo did send us this machine for free, and we do get to keep it. But they have no editorial rights over this. We get to say whatever we want. They asked us to do a comparison between this and the bamboo. And for me, it falls a little short, because whilst the print quality is great and is on par with my X1 Carbon, I feel like the fit and finish should have been one that improved and iterated rather than carbon copied. So that's the video. If you want to check out your own Centauri Carbon, because I want to be clear, the price is aggressive. If you genuinely think that having good time lapses and having more information on Clipper is worth basically double the price, that's fine. It's your money. For me, this is an excellent printer that requires some polishing, and they really do need to work with Orca Slicer to mean I haven't got to use their slicer. If we got an Orca Slicer profile and there was a way to resolve the really quite poor lighting, then I would say what you have here is a very comparable machine to something like the P1S, the P1P without the AMS, and the X1 Carbon without the AMS. If you can live without Ethernet, this is an excellent machine. Excellent machine. But there are some things that I just wish made it a disruptor. Meant that it wasn't just competing by offering up the same things with the same classic taste. That it iterated and it built on. A lot of what this seems to be put into the market is marketing terms. It's buzzwords. It's 500 millimeters a second. It's 20,000. You know, it's 20,000 millimeters a second on acceleration. And I have no way to validate that because the version of Clipper that they give me, it doesn't give me any live readouts. There's no information there. I just set it to 500 millimeters a second and maybe it's doing that. I wanted this to be Elegoo's crowning achievement. I feel like it's a little principality that they've dipped their toe into the water. They've done a good job. They've built a good printer. But they haven't changed the game. And I think my expectations at this point are that the big brands need to show companies like Bambu that they're not just going to copy what they've done, but they're going to iterate. I don't want this type of Core XY to become the new Ender 3, where it is a race to the lowest price possible, and that is the value factor. Not that you're adding more, iterating more, building better. Just that it's cheaper than its alternatives. It's a great price. It produces great results. I genuinely believe that if you get one, you'll be happy with it. But it won't pry you away from your Bambu friends. It won't set a new standard in 3D printing. It won't revolutionize the game. And I really think it could have done. Maybe that's a missed opportunity. Maybe that's high expectations. But that's where we are. Thank you very much for watching. Let me know in the comments if there's things you want to see in follow-up videos, if you want to see other things this is doing. We're going to be doing some YouTube shorts of this as well so that you can see it printing. We will not be using the time lapses. And we'll catch you on the next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Stay safe.